All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine. Hope you all are doing well. First of all, I just got to say a big thank you to all 50,000 of you. We just hit 50,000 subscribers. I know that's just a number, but it represents a community that I'm just very grateful to be a part of. You know, a lot of positivity, a lot of sharing, a lot of learning going on, and that's myself included. Y'all are great in terms of the input and really just, you know, encouraging one another. And we're going to continue to do this. There's a lot more to come. I've got some super fun things planned. So as long as y'all are with me, we're going to take this as far as it can go, continue to grow. So with that, I figured we would do a 50K Q&A. Get a lot of recurring questions on the channel, in the comments, on social media. And so I wrote down some of these, and I'm going to try and go through as many as I can. This is probably going to be a lengthy video, but let's go ahead and get started. The first question here is, do you work in music and audio full time? And do you have any tips for others who want to make a living in music? Yes, I do work in music and audio full time. So just a little bit of a backstory. I have a bachelor's degree in IT. So I went to college, and I was doing music and audio during that period while I was studying to get my degree. Once I started working at it full time, it very quickly turned into something that I was able to sustain myself with. And then that opened up doors for, you know, working with artists and songwriters. And then that became mixing and mastering. A lot of my clients needed that service. And so I started getting really into that, and gained some reputation where people were referring artists to me for mixing and mastering. And then I started doing sound design and all these other things that I'm doing in the industry. And so I'm very thankful that I'm able to do what I love every day, and you know, work hard at it, but it's a lot of fun. Do I have any tips for others who want to make a living in music? Yeah, I do. You know, a lot of you that come to me with this question, you're working 9 to 5s, and you're trying to figure out how you can get to the point where your music can possibly support you and your family, or what you're doing with audio. And I think it's important to, you know, prioritize and manage your time properly. So when you're coming home from work, you know, some of you have kids, some of you are distracted, you're going out with your friends and partying or doing whatever. Some of those things you have to balance, and some of the things you have to give up. So obviously, you know, your family, if you have kids, that comes first. But when you do have free time, you know, wherever you would be wasting time, like just watching TV or whatever, devote that time to developing your craft, you know, whatever it is, whether you're producing, making beats, you want to be a mix engineer, you're making sounds, you know, whatever it is in the field, spend is all your free time doing that. And what that's going to allow you to do is get the experience to hopefully eventually get to the point that, you know, people are going to pay you for your time, but they're not going to until you have enough experience that, you know, that is warranted. And so again, focus on time management and prioritizing, and, you know, the rest will come together. I'm a big believer that your intentions will allow things to fall into place. So if you have the right intentions about, you know, why you're making music and why you're mixing or making beats, the rest will fall into place, and people will notice your passion, and they'll notice that you're providing value. So that's another really important piece of, you know, making a living at anything, is you got to be able to provide value for people. Next question, what do I do when I have a creative block? I just step away from the studio or, you know, my work, and I get outside. I like to run, I like to hike. I may just call a friend, call up some family, you know, talk for a little bit, and just kind of switch it up. You know, it may be stepping away from it from a day or two and taking a day trip, you know, going out with some friends, whatever. I gotta just get out of that mode, because I'm in this mode all the time pretty much, or a lot of the time. So one of my biggest challenges, I don't have any problems with time management or scheduling. It's just I'm always doing this. So balance is something that I have trouble with. So creating more balance will help you get out of creative blocks. That's been really helpful for me anyway. How did you get comfortable talking on camera? I don't like speaking in front of people. This is something that comes with experience, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. I have dealt with social anxiety in my life for a long time, and it's something that I've gotten to the point where, it doesn't control me anymore. And, even starting a YouTube channel and knowing that I was going to be talking on camera, at first I was really uncomfortable with it. So this is probably what a lot of you are experiencing, but the more you do it, it just becomes second nature, and it's not something that you even really notice. Like just sitting here in front of the camera, I've just done this so many times. I've got 250 something videos. So you start kind of conditioning yourself to do it, and it just becomes like second nature. So if you're finding yourself having trouble talking in front of a camera or talking in front of people, the more you do it and the more you challenge yourself to do it, the more comfortable you will get with it. So just stick with it. And again, that's something I've dealt with. And yeah, it's something you got to actively work at. What is my favorite type of music to work on? I don't really have a favorite type, like in terms of, like genre, because I just love all types of music. I'm very eclectic in terms of my tastes. For me, it's more about, is it a piece of music that I really connect with? So not so much genre or type, but if it's just something that's inspiring to me, that's the stuff that like I really like to work on. Not that I don't enjoy all of the stuff that I work on for my clients, because I really do to some extent, even the stuff that I don't personally connect with. But the stuff that really inspires me, that's fun to work on because I just lose track of time. And it's a very powerful feeling to be a part of something that you truly believe in like that. So that would be my favorite types of music to work on. What mic and preamp would I recommend for someone just starting out? This mic, the NT1, as well as the AI1 interface, for the price of it. And again, I've worked with Rode for a while. There's a reason for that. It's because, I strongly believe in the cost versus what they're offering is amazing. So I would definitely check that out. Some other preamps that are cool that I would recommend would be like the UA Apollo line. They actually have a new one. I think it's called the Arrow, and great interfaces, good quality preamps as well. Let's see. What was your dream when you started out in the music industry? That's a good question. I think my initial vision of what I wanted to do was I wanted to be a producer of like really big pop songs. I wanted to be in the studio with big artists, and that was kind of my dream. And a lot of you ask like, well, are you still trying to do that? And my answer is that my priorities changed. So back then, very early on, when you're getting into stuff like that, you're kind of in a narrow vision of like what you actually want to contribute and what you want to do with your career. And I think I've just grown to realize that there's things that are a lot more important to me than just being a part of a popular song. I want it to be something that's genuine and sincere, and that I feel really contributes and that can provide value for other people. So my whole focus shifted to, how can I use my talents and my passions to help other people and to empower, other artists. So it was a shift of my focus and really of my priority. But that's kind of how it started, if I, just being completely frank about it. So let's see, what are some of my favorite artists right now? In hip hop, I like Big Crit, I like Logic, Lecrae, the new Kanye. There's certain songs that I like. In terms of rock, I listen to a lot of instrumental rock music. So I listen to like Animals as Leaders, BT Bam. Who else am I listening to? David Maximicic. I listen to a lot of ambient music. So like Taicho. I'm listening to all kinds of stuff. It's everywhere. But those are a couple right now anyway. Did I go to school to learn what I did in music, and would I recommend it? How did I learn what I know? I did not go to school, as I mentioned earlier, for music specifically. I majored in IT, which is technology based, didn't really have anything to do with most of the stuff I'm doing for a living now. Would I recommend going to school for music? This is something that I cover a lot on the channel, with those of you who are curious about certain programs. I think it depends on the type of learner you are. So some people learn very well with like strict sort of regimented learning schedules, and they need a curriculum to kind of follow, and that helps them. So if you're that type of learner, some of these music schools and programs I think would work better for you. I was not that type of learner. Like, I did not like school. I wasn't particularly great in school because I didn't care to learn that way. I knew what I was interested in, and I would figure out what I needed to know by being curious and reading and going on the internet and doing all that stuff. But if I didn't have an interest in it, I wasn't going to go and follow like this curriculum. So that just wasn't for me. So if you're like me, I don't think that you have to go to school, obviously, or formal schooling. You need to obviously be learning every day. You need to challenge yourself to learn new things, but you can do it in a way that if you have self-discipline, you don't necessarily need a formal curriculum. So good question here. We got how do you stay positive? And this one just comes down to attitude. So, there's positive and negative in everything. So when I am talking about positivity and staying positive, I don't mean that everything that's happening in our lives is always going to be happy and positive. I just mean your attitude towards things. That's what you can control. So I always just try to focus on not the situation, whether it's positive or negative, but, controlling my attitude towards it. So if I have a positive attitude, things can, turn around. Like the other day, my power kept going out when I was doing a tutorial, and rather than get mad about it, I just sort of had the attitude of like, this is crazy. It went out twice, like at the very end of filming a long video. And so I just laughed about it. And by just laughing and just letting go and saying, you know what, it is what it is. And I didn't end up doing the tutorial. I ended up doing a live video with the tutorial, a live stream, and all of you all were there, and we had a great time, and y'all got to look at the plugin, and it did the same thing. So it's just, it's my attitude is about being resilient and getting through those challenges rather than just being defeated by things, All right, this is a good question. Why didn't you reply to my DM on Instagram? Number one, I'm really bad at checking my DMs. I just sort of forget they're there. I don't know if any of you do that, but there's just so many different like mediums that I'm on, and YouTube, Twitter, email, Facebook, like all this stuff. It's a lot to keep up with. Those of you who have seen my activity in terms of social media, I'm very, very responsive. I try to, comment back on everything that I can. And YouTube comments, I'm very active with. Like if I spent my time replying to DMs, like I wouldn't have time to do videos or anything, because it's just, I can only do so much. So the best ways to reach out to me are through Twitter @replies, YouTube comments, and my email. I'm a little bit slower with email, but I do get back to everybody that sends me an email. So you got plenty of options to reach me. So if you didn't get a reply to a DM, there's other ways to get in touch with me. So the next question was, what is my favorite piece of gear in my studio? It's really tough. A lot of this stuff facilitates my process, but my keyboards are actually in storage right now, but I just grabbed this one, and it sort of just has more of like a sentimental, nostalgic value to it, although I do use it a lot, and I've used it on a lot of my tracks over the years. But this is a Access Virus Indigo synthesizer, and this was just one of the first synths that when I was really young, actually, I remember hearing this and seeing this at a local music shop and just being like, one day I'm gonna get that synth. And it took me a really long time, but when I got it, again, it was just exciting because as a kid I always looked at this and was just like, man, I really would love to have that. And it sounds amazing. It's super inspiring to use, and I just know it inside and out, and I know how to make really any kind of sound with this synth. So this is my favorite piece in the studio. All right, so this next question I get a lot on YouTube, especially. It's why do you wear a hat in the studio? So let me just say that I didn't realize that apparently, like in Europe and some other countries, wearing hats or ball caps, as some of y'all call them, indoors is not like socially acceptable, which that's totally new to me, because in the States, you know, people wear hats indoors all the time. Like it's just not that much of a thing. So I wear hats in the studio mainly because of these lights when I'm filming. They're really bright. Otherwise, I use it because when I wear headphones, it just gives me like a little bit more cushion up here, because if I'm wearing headphones, you know, for extended periods, they can start to get a little bit uncomfortable. So it helps with that. But that's really it. And again, I didn't realize it was such a big deal until I started getting some comments of like, people were legitimately angry about me wearing a ball cap indoors. Never knew. See, these are cultural things that, you know, YouTube, I wouldn't have known. Next question is, are you a Christian? I saw a crucifix on your studio desk and you talk about God in your lyrics. Yes, I am a Christian, and my faith is very important to my creative process, but also just, you know, the way I live. I'm not perfect and I never will be, but I certainly strive to, you know, live by the teachings of Jesus Christ. However, I am not the kind of Christian who's like, you know, unless you believe what I believe, you know, I'm right and you're wrong. I just feel like it's something that when that comes into your heart, it's very personal, and your relationship is very personal, because we all have such different experience and perspective. So for me to be like, well, my journey and the way that I'm, you know, coming about my relationship with my creator is the way that you should, you know, that's not something that I personally believe in. But yes, I am a Christian, and you know, ultimately, again, I want to operate out of a place of love and compassion, and you know, just not be fueled by ego. What is my favorite studio snack? I've gotten this quite a few times, and I actually don't eat a lot in the studio, actually ever. Usually I'll have like a cup of tea or, you know, water. But yeah, so if I could do liquid, it would be ginger tea or turmeric tea. I usually have a cup of that in my studio. And again, the eating thing, like you can hear my stomach growl right now because it's lunchtime and yeah, I don't have any snacks in here. So cheers. Next question. Do you drink or smoke? And do you think it enhances creativity as a musician or engineer? I do drink occasionally. I rarely ever drink liquor, but I do drink beer and wine, obviously in moderation. I do not smoke. I smoked for a good amount of time when I was younger, but I haven't smoked since like 2012 maybe, so it's been a long time. Do I think it enhances creativity? And I'm assuming you're talking about drinking and smoking like marijuana or whatever. And I don't do any drugs, by the way. So do I think it enhances creativity? I think it can, but the problem is that stuff, you can become very dependent. And I have an addictive personality, so for my own reasons, I just don't mess with that stuff. And again, I have to like moderate even drinking coffee and things, just to make sure that I'm not letting it get out of hand. But, I think it's really dangerous to start to associate those substances with creativity, because then you become reliant on them. And then when you don't have them, it's like in your mind, you feel like you can't do what you need to do, or that you need them for some reason, which is not reality and it's not the truth. And it ultimately shifts your perspective. And for me as a creator, I need to be in control of how consistent things are and how I'm sort of feeling. And, obviously every day is going to be a little bit different, but what I'm saying is I want to be in this mind, and I want to be conscious, and I want to be present in the same way, consistently. So I don't want to shift that consciousness and presence. You got to be responsible and understand what you can and can't handle and what you can and can't moderate. I'll leave you to that. Do I reference other songs when mixing? Yes, I definitely do. And usually I will pull up Spotify, and I have a mixing reference playlist. It has a lot of mixes from Andy Wallace, Manny Marroquin, just some engineers I really respect. And then it just has some songs that, either I grew up really loving the mixes for, or some things that the artist has sent me in terms of like, hey, this is kind of the overall aesthetic. All right, so the last question was, why do you use Logic Pro as your DAW? It's a question I get all the time, and some folks like to get into the DAW debate. And for me, it's just as simple as the best DAW is the one that works for you. I did a video on this, and I'll put a link up here if you want to check it out. But, I've used a ton of different DAWs. I still use quite a few. And it just really depends on, what is going to work best for achieving what I'm going for, and what's going to keep me inspired, and what has the best workflow in terms of efficiency. And I love the mixer in Logic Pro X. I can just get around it really quickly. And I don't like to jump back and forth between DAWs a ton in my creative process. And so I've just found that Logic Pro X is very consistent for me. But use whatever works for you. I'm not trying to sell you on being a Logic Pro X user unless you try it and you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. But for me, it definitely does what I want it to do, and they're great with updates. A lot of free additions and a lot of value packed in there. All right, y'all. So that's the last question. We got through quite a few many there. And I really appreciate y'all, 50,000 subscribers, and really just encouraged about where the channel is headed and the community that has been built here. My hope is that we continue to just encourage one another and help each other grow and learn. And it's just fun. I'm very, very blessed, and I'm just happy with how this channel has grown into a community of people like you. And it's super cool to me. So thank you, and we'll be talking to y'all real soon. Peace.
Playing on a drum kit 7 hours daily, bothering my neighbors might have drove my family crazy. I was living like a hooligan, doing things I never do again.
God forgive me. Music saved my life.
All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart like